Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Men with the Golden Tongues. I am your host, Micah, joined by my co-host, Brad.
We have hit the apex of the Pierce Brosnan era.
Yeah.
We hit it last month.
Yeah, we hit it last month.
It's only downhill from here.
It's only downhill. This, for me, is it's not a steep, it's not a steep downward trajectory here. We're here to talk about the 1997 film Tomorrow Never Dies, directed by Roger
Spottiswoode.
Thank you very much.
So this is hilarious because this is where the director carousel starts happening with the Bond franchise. And for some reason, so they got Martin Campbell last film, Goldeneye, who did a very good job, but who wasn't a very prolific director at the time that he was hired for that. So this time they get Roger Spottiswoode, whose most popular film credit to this point was the 1992, I don't think it's an exaggeration to call it a tour de force, Sylvester Stallone Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And so they got this guy to direct the latest James Bond movie.
Well, I can see the parallels. There being a male star and a female star.
That's about the only parallels. Maybe it would have been more appropriate if he had directed Skyfall then. That would be a closer corollary.
Oh, goodness gracious.
With the age gap.
This movie stars Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, Michelle Yeoh as Colonel Y. Lin, Jonathan Pryce as Elliot Murdoch. Rupert Carver. Elliot Carver.
And also starring Jonathan Pryce's left eyebrow as well. As a separate character in the film.
Oh, man. What did you think about this movie, Brad?
So this is a movie that's very difficult. Like the biggest thing for me is it's very difficult to feel any way about this film. Mm-hmm. I don't love it. I don't hate it. There are parts of it that I really enjoy. In fact, this movie actually has one of my all-time favorite James Bond scenes, which we'll get to later on.
Excellent.
I like the villain. I like the villain's motivations. I like how delightfully over the top Jonathan Pryce plays this character. And he is very over the top. And the action scenes are fine. And it's just all right. I think when I did my Bond synopsis, what are we, 5 years ago now, for the Nerdpocalypse, I think one of the lines that I used to talk about this movie is spectacularly mediocre. And that is the essence of Tomorrow Never Dies. It is the least offensive, but also least celebrated Bond film that there is, probably.
I agree. It's just kind of there. And there are things about it, right? Like, no one is ever going to cite Tomorrow Never Dies as their top 5 James Bond movies, but no one's ever going to cite it as like one of the bottom 5 either.
No, it is in James Bond limbo, basically. It exists, and it's good for a watch, and there's some interesting parts in it, and by the time you're done, it's entirely forgettable. Like, there really is nothing in this movie that is going to stick with you and linger, aside from the one fantastic scene.
This movie, if I had to compare GoldenEye to this, GoldenEye is the Jurassic Park to this movie's The Lost World.
I don't think this is as bad as The Lost World.
But I like The Lost World. I like The Lost World, but it's not like there's some stupid stuff in The Lost World, and there's some stupid stuff in this too. And I know what you mean. Like, this, it's not as technically this film is better than The Lost World, right? From a filmmaking standpoint. But I remember watching this in 1997, and I'm just like, this is stupid, right? Like I couldn't buy Elliot Carver's motivation. While I thought he was fantastic, right? Like he is Jonathan Pryce is chewing up each and every bit of scenery that he's in. My my recollection of what a media mogul was Ted Turner. And I'm like, well, Ted Turner would never be this smart. So this is completely unbelievable. Now, watching this now, I mean, I'm a little feared.
Yeah.
I'm a little frightened because I can kind of see it.
Like I said, we're trying not to date the show, even though this movie does a fantastic job of dating itself, by the way. What a terrible time for this movie to come out, considering how the world would change. Like it happens right before like the boon of the internet.
Yeah. And
it very much shows in this film. Not to say that like the Carver Media Group wouldn't have shifted towards online. I'm sure they would have in contemporary times. But did you also laugh at the constant use of the phrase global positioning satellites?
Yes, because they kept saying it, right? They would say GPS and then global positioning satellite because we don't know what GPS is.
Right, because it's 1997.
Right.
And nobody knows shit.
Right. And now we can just tell our phones to tell us where we need to go.
Right. Who'd have thought? That's Sony Ericsson that Bond carries around in this movie. It was considered very high tech at the time.
What with it being able to electrocute people?
Well, that and control and remote control a car as well. Remote control an old man looking BMW.
Yeah, this movie is just kind of there. It's just kind of there, and it doesn't feel like if this wasn't a Bond movie, this would be an okay. This would be an okay, action spy flick.
It's funny that you say that because hold that thought till the end of the film.
Excellent. Let's get to it. We enter the scene. We set the scene, and the scene is set for us by the words on the screen, and I'm about to read to you. A terrorist arms bazaar on the Russian border. Basically, we are at a terrorist flea market
with nuclear weapons and
guns, planes and guns and jeeps and all that good stuff,
and MacGuffins and things of that nature as well.
And we see M and British Admiral Roebuck.
You mean Jolly McJallerson? Admiral McJallerson, the jolliest man I've ever seen in my entire life.
I mean, if a bulldog was personified, it is this dude. Like he is holding some nuts in his mouth for the winter, man. Like it is pretty amazing. M wants to. James Bond is on a recon mission, and M wants to let him finish, but British Admiral Bulldog orders the frigate.
Kanye's him, basically.
Yeah. He orders the HMS Chester to launch a missile attack at the bazaar, right? Because it's like, oh well, here's a bunch of lowlifes. Let's just blow them up without probable cause, or
without waiting till the entire bazaar is properly scoped out, because like immediately after the missile is launched, Bond is talking to Robinson and he's like, hey, did you notice there's fucking nuclear warheads out in this arms bazaar? And they're like, oh shit, we better abort the missile. And of course the abort fails.
And I like how Bond didn't even just straight up tell Robinson that there are nuclear warheads. He's just like, Bond, pull up. But Robinson's like, Bond, pull out. And Bond's just like, hold up. Like, what do you mean hold up? Pull out. Just wait a minute. Hold on. Bond, pull out. Like, you need to get out of there right now. And like, just wait one more sec. Oh, why couldn't you just tell me? Why couldn't you just tell
Right.
me? You
Be
just had
easier
to,
that way.
yeah, like you're such a tease.
I gotta say,
Bond.
I like I love all the Brosnan openings in all of his films, even though they all take like 20 minutes and there's no need for them to be as long as they are, and this is no exception.
Yeah.
You also get to see massive destruction in this because, of course, Bond's like, well, I'm going to save the day by commandeering the plane that has the nuclear warheads on them and flying it the fuck out of Dodge, which he then began to do. By the way, Micah, did you so this is David Arnold's first Bond score, and he would go on to do several of these. I really like David Arnold. He comes from the school of John Barry when it comes to Bond composition, and I dig it. Did you notice the callback to From Russia with Love in the score here?
I did not.
Yeah, like as the action's getting ready to start, they do like ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, like they have that. He sprinkles stuff like that in throughout. There's also a Dr. No callback later on that I'll bring up.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, you might want to have like subtle musical cues to good Bond movies to try and pretend that this very okay Bond movie is more than what it, actually is. Like you said, Bond hijacks this plane. There's a big explosion, and the explosion engulfs the plane, and everyone's like, oh no, James Bond's dead. But as you said, we're only 8 minutes into this thing, so obviously the plane flies through the explosion, and we get a plane chase scene.
Yes, he's being chased in a dogfight by another plane, and of course the gunner in the plane that he commandeered, who he knocked out once he got in, comes to and starts trying to strangle him to death while he's flying this plane. Seems like a really bad idea. Yeah,
if you're the gunner, you might not want to kill the pilot. At least, well, maybe he had like a contingency plan, like a parachute. Like, once I kill this guy, then I'll eject.
Well,
I won't eject first.
Well, what he didn't know is that James Bond, vehicle expert, is so expert at piloting a fighter jet. Not only can he do it with his hands, but he can do it with his knees. Normal people can't even drive their car with their knees in most cases, but James Bond can do barrel rolls and expertly fly a plane with the throttle in between his legs as he is trying to avoid dying via garrote. Basically,
I've never held a flight stick, but I gotta imagine that a real flight stick would take just a little bit more effort than one would have than trying to maneuver this thing with your legs while being choked to death.
How do you do like pitch though? Like when you're piloting with your knees, you can't rock back and forth in that seat. It doesn't work that way. So like I said, not only does he avoid getting missiled to death, but then somehow he's able to come up underneath the other plane that's chasing him down before he ejects his co-pilot into the bottom of the plane. Again, I don't think that's how that works either. I don't think if you eject someone directly upward that they would actually come through the plane and be sitting in the co-pilot seat. But then, of course, the plane would veer off and explode. I guess there must have been an air hill that the plane landed on.
What you didn't know about planes is that the bottom of the plane is made of paper mache.
Okay.
Which is why they're able to eject one person from the plane into the bottom of another plane, apparently. It's so ridiculous. Like, there are things in this movie that are so comical to me. Like, this movie tries to be serious, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of goofy stuff in here, and I don't even know if, like, some of it is intentional, like the scene with the doctor, and and the greatest scene in the movie for me, the scene that got the biggest laugh towards the end of the movie that we'll get to. But then other stuff is just like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, Bond flies away seconds before all the destruction, and then we get the title credits and the song "Tomorrow Never Dies," sung by Sheryl Crow.
That is correct.
Yes, I couldn't remember if it was Sheryl Crow or Celine Dion, but it's Sheryl Crow.
I'm in a puddle on the floor, waiting for you to return. Oh, what a thrill, fascinations galore. How you tease, how you leave me to burn. It's so deadly, my dear, the power of having you near until the day, until the world falls away, until you say there'll be no more goodbyes. I see it in your eyes. Tomorrow never dies.
What do you think about the opening and this song?
I think that they should have stuck with the original plan. And the original plan was the song that you hear at the end of the film, sung by Katie Lang, called Surrender, which is not only, and you'll hear that at the end of this episode too, so you can judge for yourself, but not only is that a vastly superior song to Tomorrow Never Dies, but it was written by David Arnold, and when he wrote the score for the film, he used themes from that song. This is another Thunderball instance where he used themes from a song they wrote before they decided the last minute, oh, we want something that has the title of the movie in it. So we get Tomorrow Never Dies instead. An incredibly average song.
Yeah,
Actually below average song. I don't care for the song all that much.
it's fine. I don't hate it. That's going to be a lot of what this is going to be today.
It's just so. Sheryl Crow's not the singer that I think of when I'm thinking of like a Bond. Her style of singing, her voice is not like boisterous enough.
Yeah, she doesn't
for
have,
a Bond film.
She doesn't have that power behind the things that need. It's just kind of there.
Now I dig the title sequence itself. Like I thought the techno elements lend itself well to the theme of the movie. This is really Daniel Kleinman stepping out because we saw what he did in Goldeneye, but Goldeneye was kind of more of like a restrained title sequence. This is him like, I'm just gonna fucking CG the shit out of this and make it look awesome. And he did. Like I said, it's very ingenious, and very inventive, and the one that we would see in the next film too would be the same way.
Yeah, I actually like this. This is it's very cool. Like you said, it relates to it has thematic elements that pertain to the movie that makes sense. And yeah, the title sequence is fine, but the song is just kind of okay. We cut back to another boat, and it is I forget the name of the ship, but
it's the Devonshire, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, thank you. And the Devonshire is being monitored by a stealth boat. And on the stealth boat, there is Hitler's prototype, aka Mr. Stamper, Richard Stamper, played by Götz Otto.
Gertz Otto. You need to learn your German pronunciations.
Apparently. And Henry Gupta, played by Ricky Jay. When I hear the name Gupta, this guy is not who I think of.
Who do you think of?
The name Gupta. When I hear the name Gupta, I think of a Indian dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Like, yeah.
You don't think of earthquakes slightly better looking cousin.
And Stamper reports to his boss, who we will eventually find out is Elliot Carver, media mogul. And Gupta is using the MacGuffin to make it seem like the British are, Well, first of all, they use they hack the global positioning satellites to make the Devonshire think that it is away from Chinese not airspace,
Waters.
waters. I thought it was something more clever.
No,
than
I
that.
just the Chinese coast, basically Chinese shore,
And
however long it extends from their borders. So
and the Chinese sent out their MiGs, their airplanes, to be like, "Hey, what are you doing? You need to get the hell out of here." And the boat is like, "What? We're in international waters. Fuck you." And all this confusion is caused by Gupta and um Gupta and Spencer and the rest of the crew on their stealth boat made of stealth materials.
yes, well,
I don't know
stealth the radar, not to visual. sight.
Yes.
Why
stealth
why the planes couldn't see the stealth boat anywhere? I'm not really sure.
Well, it was dark.
I guess so. By the way, not really able to be seen, but I know for a fact that one of the crewmates on the stealth boat is actually Gerard Butler in there somewhere.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Like I said, I looked for him as hard as I could, but I couldn't pick him out. But he's on there somewhere
Wow. Cool.
before he was famous.
Yeah.
What do you think about the sea drill? So to fuck with to spark this incident, the stealth boat launches this torpedo drill that can be controlled via remote control to basically like go through the ship like it's a video game almost. And this is what is going to sink the British ship, which they think was a torpedo dropped by the Chinese.
Again, it's one of these things that's incredibly silly, but I think it's unique, right? Like it's menacing, like it looks scary, and but at the same time, like it's just kind of silly to me.
It seems implausible. Like I don't understand how
Like,
this would work.
I can suspend my disbelief if it looks cool. Like if it, because it doesn't take a lot for me to want to buy into something, it's impractical and it's implausible, right? But you use this thing and you get the payoff that I think everyone was hoping for, but at the same time doesn't really fit this James Bond. Like we'll get to it at the end.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just silly. I don't mind it. It's a means to an end. And instead of because they don't want the thing to blow up, right? Because they need to
That's
get this
okay.
thing-
That's a fair point. And plus they also didn't think that anyone would ever discover the ship
right,
anyway because of where they were reporting their position to be when it sunk.
right.
And of course, Carver's men also missile one of the MiGs as they're bawling out, so that the Chinese think the British attack them as well. And so this is all in the hopes of sparking an international incident, which Carver then immediately turns to his his lackeys, his goons, and has them stop the presses. This is Michael Wilson's sighting in the movie. Of course, he is the one who delivers the line, "Consider him slimed," and talking about the president. As Carver's trying to plant an unfavorable story. So like I said, an interesting motivation for a villain, I think.
I will give you this. While I think this motivation is completely ludicrous, it is unique, at least at the time.
It's based in fact, though.
Really?
So he even evokes later in the film William Randolph Hearst, who was a media baron back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and he actually was famous for kind of stoking the fires of the Spanish-American War. Now, he didn't create that conflict out of whole cloth,
Right.
but he was responsible for prolonging it by publishing a lot of propaganda. And that quote of his later in the film that Carver attributes to him, where he tells his photographers, "You bring me the pictures and I'll bring you the war," is kind of the basis and motivation for what we have in this film.
When I say it's unique, I can't think of another film that has done something like this.
Mhm.
with with a media mogul, or like it's like we've seen people play two sides against each other, but that's not new. But this particular instance of Ted Turner or Rupert Murdoch doing it, like it's unique in that regard. Like, the guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah, like I said, we come to find out his sole motivation is to get exclusive broadcast rights within China by elevating a corrupt Chinese general into power through this conflict, basically.
I mean, it's I'm sorry. I was just looking at the end of this scene where Elliot is talking to his golden retrievers, as he calls them, and the way Jonathan Pryce is just like, "There's no news like bad news," and then he does the fucking people's eyebrow, right? Like, it's so funny, man. Like, I can't.
I'm surprised there's any scenery left by the time this movie is over.
He used
He's consumed it all.
He used that missile drill to eat up all the scenery, man. Like, it's so funny, man. I absolutely love it. James Bond is
It's at Oxford.
He's at Oxford, and he's with this Danish girl. And the only reason I point this out, like, it's an innocuous scene, right? But the only reason I point it out is because it has a couple of decent lines in it, right? Like, Moneypenny calls James while he's in bed with this Danish chick, and and she's like, "Hey, where you at?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in Oxford, brushing up on a little Danish." Like, as he's brushing up on this Danish girl, right? And the Danish girl's like, "Little." It was like, "Baby, just calm down. Just let me do my quips, and we'll be all right. We'll be all right." And the second part is when Moneypenny comes back and says, "You are always a cunning linguist, James." Like, that's a little too close to "You were always a cunnilingus, James."
That's right. Like 13-year-old me didn't understand that joke. It took me many years. It took me many years to figure out why that joke was funny.
It's just so funny, man. Like, I love it. And then
Right, they get a don't ask, don't tell joke in there as well.
Oh, goodness gracious. The DB5 makes an appearance.
Yes. Second movie in a row. Too bad we won't see it next film.
Yeah. I would kind of had preferred that the DB5 get the top billing in this film when it came to cars.
Are you surprised that they had both the DB5 and the BMW? Like I'd think BMW or Aston Martin would be unhappy about having to share time with the other.
Yes and no. I think that they could convince Aston Martin that, hey, come on, the DB5 is always going to be the James Bond car. Like, we're always going to have your car be the James Bond car. Plus, we're going to fuck up that BMW. Like, we are going to rip it apart. We're going to get 17 of them and just blow them the fuck up. Whereas your car will always be in pristine condition. So I can see them being like, I can see Aston Martin being like, "Oh, okay." And then I can see BMW being like, "Whoa, we're going to be in a James Bond, and we're going to be the gadget car, and he's going to do all this wild and crazy nonsense in our car." And like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I can kind of see them playing. I can see them doing an Elliot Carver and playing both sides to get what they want.
That's fair. Speaking of two sides, we're about to embark on some major exposition featuring one of the most British actors that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Which one?
Not the well, I mean, this scene is peak British as we go along. But like the guy who I guess is like the defense minister for England.
Yes.
Like look at how uptight he is during the scene, and just the way he delivers the line, Christ, is amazing.
Just ready to flip flop on a dime, just like trying his best to appease everybody, but just like, do I go with you or do I go with you? Fuck it, we'll do both. I'll go with you. You got 2 days to do your thing.
Right. So like M is preaching moderation. She wants to investigate what's going on with the ship. And of course, warmonger McJallerson wants to run in with the British Navy right away and blow China off the face of the earth.
Yeah, he's like, well, pardon me, Em, but I don't think you have the balls for this job. And she's like, yeah, well, I don't have to think with them either, dickhead. Like, oh, touche.
The GPS system, global positioning satellites do not lie.
Yes, but our Singapore station picked up a mysterious signal on the GPS frequency at the time of the attack. He could have sent that ship off course.
I have a missing British frigate.
I'm aware of that.
And instead of decisive action, all you want to do is
My
investigate.
goal is to prevent World War III, Admiral. And I don't think sending an armada into the recovery area is the best way to do it.
Where exactly did this mysterious GPS signal come from?
We're still investigating.
Investigating. With all due respect, Em, sometimes I don't think you have the balls for this job.
Perhaps. But the advantage is I don't have to think with them all the time.
That's enough. Now, where do we stand?
It was an unprovoked attack on a ship in international waters. We send in the fleet for recovery and prepare for full retaliation.
Moderation. We investigate and stop short of sending the entire British Navy within 10 minutes of the world's largest air force.
When will our ships be in position?
48 hours.
Christ. The press are already screaming for blood. The last thing we want to do is escalate the situation.
I'm afraid it may be too late to worry about that. 17 British sailors murdered.
According to Vietnamese officials who recovered the bodies, the victims were riddled with the same ammunition used by the Chinese Air Force.
Did you leak this?
No. It's the first I've heard of it.
Well, this settles it. We send in the fleet. M, you have 48 hours to investigate.
And then stuffy British dude is like, okay, guys, hold on, please. let's just do both. Screw it. We fast forward a little bit and we get a Q scene. Q
brought to you by this episode's sponsor, Avis.
Avis. Yeah, yeah, no kidding. How they convinced Avis to take a car that is essentially rented to James Bond and let that car plow into an Avis, I'll never understand.
Here's what I don't understand. Why is it necessary for Q to go undercover in the field as an Avis agent to get James Bond his car in the complete with the trademark red Avis Blazer? I mean, it leads to a fun scene where Q is basically like running down all the coverage that Bond needs, and he's like, collision, oh yes, personal damage, of course, and getting frustrated.
It's the insurance damage waiver for your beautiful new car. Will you need collision coverage?
Yes,
Fire?
probably.
Property destruction?
Definitely.
Personal injury?
I hope not, but accidents do happen.
They frequently do with you.
Well, that takes care of the normal wear and tear. Do I need any other protection?
Only from me, 007, unless you bring that car back in pristine order. Shall we?
Shall we?
There's also a scene that they left on the cutting room floor that has a gag where Q's like, I'm going to show you your new car. And Bond's like, okay. And he pops the sides of the shipping crate away. And there's like a jungle cat in a cage inside of the thing. And Bond's like, oh, it's a Jaguar. And he's like, oh, that's the wrong crate. That's the wrong crate. So if you're wondering why in the crate behind the car, there's like a Jaguar prowling around in a cage, that's why, because it was a joke that they cut out.
That's hilarious in a Roger Moore-esque kind of way. This is very much his Roger Moore like outing in this film. to me. If I had to compare, because it's but one of the like more serious Roger Moore movies, because it's rather silly, right? The plot is silly. There's quips in here from not from everyone, right? Like it's not as egregious as the movie that we'll do 2 months from now, but they're there, like they're here, and there you can it's kind of planting the seed a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know if I when we get to a couple, if I remember, I'll bring them up.
Well, Brosnan to me is always the one that's been able to kind of be like the jack of all trades when it comes to Bond. Like he can do the serious, but he can also do the humor, and he can do the action. He's just not particularly awesome at any of those things.
Do you think that's a detriment, or is that just the thing that he is known for? Like everyone else is kind of known as a type of Bond, right? Like the original, the one-off, the goofy one, the murderous one, the tough guy one. What do you call, like, is there a box that you can put Pierce Brosnan in?
Well, for me, the scenes that always stick out in my head with him are always like those deep, like introspective scenes. There's one of them in this movie as well, when he's sitting in a hotel room drinking a bottle of vodka by himself for some reason, just like contemplating life after an incident that doesn't really belie such a scene to happen. So that's kind of what he's known for, but that's not the thing you want to be known for as James Bond, right? Like you don't need to be known for like the brooding scenes,
right?
That's no fun,
right? So I don't know. I still like Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, I do too. Like it's like I said, I think he does everything pretty good. He just doesn't do anything exceptionally.
Yeah.
Whereas you can point to one thing that all the other Bonds do really well, and that's kind of their trademark.
Yeah. So James Bond is off at a gala to celebrate Elliot Carver's Carver Media Group, CNG Carver Media Group, to like their debut, right? Like they're about to go online. And their first story is going to be about these, about the events that Carver orchestrated. And he meets an old flame, a girl he used to know before she married Elliot Carver, and that is Paris Carver, played by Terry Hatcher, as she is, in my opinion, coming out of her prime, and she is the other Bond girl. She is the first Bond girl that we meet in this story. What do you think of Terry Hatcher, who is more of the traditional early Bond girl?
I think that it's a bizarre character because it almost is like that this role would have been better served if they had gotten a previous actress that had played a Bond girl before and had them resurface in this role. Like if you'd gotten if you'd gotten a Cara Malovi to somehow be in this role, because they really want you to care about this character, because you're led to believe that Bond cares about this character, even though it's hard to believe James Bond having this girlfriend that he cares enough about, you know what I mean, that he would be shaken meeting her later in life, because that's not who James Bond is. Right. So you're left to rely on the film and the actress making you give a shit about what happens to her later on in the film. And you just don't like it's they're asking you to do it, but they don't give you any reason to do it. And Terry Hatcher, I never have thought is like the greatest actress in the entire world.
Nah,
she's just there. And kind of a weird choice also in like I feel like if you'd gotten a better actress to do the role, maybe the part would have been a little bit more memorable. Now Michelle Yeoh, on the other hand, like they actually wrote her role specifically for her, so she does very well, and she gets to strut her stuff later on in the movie. Yeah, right now you don't realize her significance until later on, because she's also floating around this scene too.
Yeah. So after an interaction with Paris, Elliot comes up to Bond in Paris, and and he's like, something don't pass the smell test. Something's wrong.
Oh no, it's not that something doesn't pass the smell test. It's that James Bond does the James Bond thing where he completely blows his cover by whipping his dick out, basically, and is like, oh, he's like, what do you know about Chinese boats or British boats in Chinese waters? Isn't that weird? Like, isn't it weird when boats go missing and they just get and nobody knows what happened to them? And it's like, aren't you a banker? Like, yeah, I know all sorts of shit. I'm a banker that reads the news.
Yeah, didn't he say something like, "Oh yeah, it's like Carver's like, yeah, I should commission you to write a book." It's like, "Oh, I wouldn't know what to write. I'd be lost at sea, adrift."
Right? It's like, what are you doing?
Bullet holes. Like, wait, what?
Giant drill holes sitting at the bottom of an ocean with nuclear warheads in my belly, and with misidentified GPS coordinates.
GPS being global positioning satellite, just in case you don't know what that is.
Right. So basically, he's like, by the way, I'm not actually a banker. I'm some spy that's coming to, and I'm on to you already. But I'm just going to provoke you so that you do something stupid, so that I can confirm my suspicions that you were involved with this killer. Which, to be fair, Carver absolutely does by taking Bond off into a soundproof recording studio and trying to have his goons beat the shit out of him.
Yes. He eventually overpowers them and shuts down the broadcast.
Hey, that's cool. You know what? He knows where to hit him. He knows how to hit him where it hurts in his ego.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's all this guy has, man. Like, this guy can't fight. Like, you're not gonna have a knockdown drag out with this guy.
Well, he's a crack shot, as we'll find out later on in the film.
Yeah,
out of nowhere. But aside from that, he only has his ego to be damaged.
Next scene, we see Bond in his hotel room, like you said, drinking.
Why is he like sitting there like, oh, I almost got my ass kicked by these goons, and I saw my ex-girlfriend who I haven't seen in years and I really miss. So let me down this entire bottle of Smirnoff, which I'll make sure the label is facing the camera so that everybody can see this very overt product placement. And I'll clean my gun and sit there with my bow tie draped around my neck and think with my thoughts until my ex-girlfriend visits me in my hotel suite, which I'm fairly certain is going to happen at some point.
Oh shit!
It's such a weird. It's weird because it's weird. It's a weird scene to follow the events that just took place.
Yeah, and it's look. It's a weird scene to begin with, but all right. It's the 90s. White people were broody in the 90s. I guess. I have no idea.
By the way, this his hotel room is at the same. They filmed it at the same golf club where Goldfinger, the golf game, takes place. They just dressed up a ballroom as a very swanky hotel room suite.
Oh, nice. Very nice. So we get the plot moves along.
Well, I like Carver because he pulls his wife aside and later is basically he knows that she's full of shit because she's like, this guy dated my college roommate back in the day, and he's like, I know you're lying, but I don't know why. And he tells her a cool story, which adds some nuance to the character. It's completely useless and doesn't really really. it's just a fancy way of him to ask why she would lie for Bond. But then he sends her to Bond's hotel room to get information. But then once she goes there, Gupta plays a audio recording that of him spying on them at the party when she asks him if he sleeps with a gun under his pillow. And this pisses off Carver because he knows that his wife is gonna betray him. Why would you send your wife to some handsome dude's hotel room and then get mad when they're gonna fuck?
Because he's a psychopath. He's a sociopath, right? He thinks that he is, he's got that ego on him, right? So maybe I'm giving this guy too much credit. Maybe he thinks that there's something going on and this was all part of the plan, or maybe he's just fucking dumb. Wait, did he send her off to him before or after he heard that tape?
Before he heard the tape. Once he heard the tape, he's like, oh shit. He realized at that point that she was going to screw him, and that's what he tells Gupta, like, make an appointment with my wife with the doctor, which is something we get to later on.
Well, then he's just dumb, because I would never, ever. Look, I'm as secure as any average insecure dude, right? Nah, man, I'm not doing that. Elliot, what are you doing, man?
But then we get this nice scene in his hotel room where, you know, she's like, "Why did you drive me?" It's such a hokey scene. Like I said, you're supposed to give a shit, and you see Bond arguably, like, Bond is more emotional in this scene than Sean Connery was about avenging his dead wife in Diamonds Are Forever. Bond is more emotional about laying eyes on his ex-girlfriend than Sean Connery was about his wife being killed.
Well, Sean Connery's like, I wasn't there for the wedding. Like my stand-in was.
That's a fair.
George was.
I was curious who Carver would send.
He's on to you.
Well, we know where you stand. You made your bed.
I'm standing in your doorway.
Then turn around and go home. You can tell him you didn't get anything out of me.
That's it? Go home?
I didn't ask you to get involved in this.
It's too late for that.
Why did you marry him?
He told me he loved me.
Oh, sounds good.
Do you know I used to look in the papers every day for your obituary?
Well, I'm sorry I keep disappointing you.
What was it, James? Did I get too close? Did I get too close for comfort?
Yes.
But like I said, I just don't. This is why you should have had like an established character in this role.
Yeah.
Like you put, again, Carl Malovy would be the perfect choice because she would have been of a similar age, maybe even a little younger than Carver. And you would have had the history with the character because they had a very sweet relationship and it would have made sense. And it just would have added so much more to the character instead of just casting someone who you don't care about.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't really, you're right. It didn't really do an effective job at what it was trying to do. It was just kind of a mediocre job. Next day, Bond plans on stealing back the global positioning satellite encoder. And Michelle Yeoh's character, Wai Lin, is also there. So Wai Lin is the Chinese counterpart to James Bond.
Yes,
and
a character that we've seen before, by the way.
Yes, and she is his opposite, and they're both after the same thing, but they don't know it.
Right. I also want to point out that I kind of dig Bond doing his spy thing in Gupta's office. Like I like the gadget that he has on his phone where he can scan the fingerprint sensor and then use that scan to open like a fingerprint lock, even though it's very reverse engineered and very very appropriate for what he needs at that specific moment. I like the fact that Gupta feels the need to keep his nudie mags inside of a fingerprint secured safe, along with all of his heroin. and his GPS recording, GPS tracking device. And I like how Bond is so petty that he feels the need to destroy a $300 million satellite on his way out of the office. Just because he's an asshole.
Shit is funny, man. Yeah, it's nice to see spy people doing spy stuff, like doing their job. Like it's not just, banging chicks and killing dudes. Like you got a job to do, buddy. We get an action scene here of Bond and Wai-Lin kind of making an escape.
Oh, she has it easy. She just like running down the wall basically,
and there's
running down the wall to get out.
Yeah, and like fucking 60s Batman style. And there's a callback to this type of shit. Like one character has the world against him, and the other character is just ho hum, just walking around, getting away scot-free. It's a cool little scene.
I like the fight sequence. Because a printing press is a cool venue for a fight. One we certainly hadn't seen at this point. Of course, being an industrial printing press, somebody's going to go into one, and of course they have the paper start spilling out with blood all over them, which Bond, of course, gets the quip. They'll print anything these days.
I love it, and I love how Bond feels the need. Like just James Bond in general, not just this particular one, but I love how Bond feels the need to quip when there's no one else around.
Just for his own satisfaction.
Like at one point, James Bond is fleeing a gunfight by lying prone on a dolly, like a truck cart. And like these dudes are missing him. I don't know how, but the script calls for it. And he gets out of the printing press and he gets into his he gets away in his BMW. He heads back over to talk to meet with Terry Hatcher's character, and Terry Hatcher's character is sprawled out over the bed, a la Joe Masterson, dead.
And now we get my absolute favorite scene in this entire movie, which it's 3 minutes long, and I'm putting it in its entirety. I don't care because it's that good. This scene is that good.
This scene is hilarious. Like I'm not even going to describe it. I just wanted to play. This scene is so fucking funny that it is a memorable. It is one of the memorable things in this particular in a very forgettable film. This is one of the things that you absolutely remember.
Right. And again, here's another case of you have Vincent Schiavelli, as a famous character actor, probably best known. He was in Batman Returns is the other thing that I know him from the most, where he was one of Penguin's lackeys.
Yes. Okay. I remember him.
Yeah. He's a very interesting face. Like he has a very notable face.
Yeah.
And he takes a nothing role and makes it completely memorable in just how he plays it.
Yeah. And it's freaking awesome, man. It's freaking awesome.
Drop your gun and kick it toward me, yeah?
At present, police have refused to speculate on the motive of this murder-suicide.
Good. Now, lie down on the bed next to Mrs. Carver.
We extend our deepest sympathies to Mr. Carver.
The story will be on the news in an hour.
Tomorrow's news today.
Just so. My name is Dr. Kaufman. I am an outstanding pistol marksman. Take my word for it, yeah?
Get the sledgehammers.
She struggled terribly, Mr. Bond. It's a pity you got her involved in all this.
It won't look like a suicide if you shoot me from over there.
I am a professor of forensic medicine. Believe me, Mr. Bond, I could shoot you from Stuttgart and still create the proper effect.
Stand for?
My art is in great demand, Mr. Bond. I go all over the world. I am especially good at the celebrity overdose. But now I am afraid, Mr. Bond, that our little... Stumper! Stop yelling in my ear, yeah?
Sir, they can't get into the car.
Oh, you can't be serious. Did you call the auto club?
Do you want to call them? Make him tell you how to open it.
Okay, I ask. This is very embarrassing. It seems there is a red box in your car. They can't get to it. They want me to make you unlock the car. I feel like an idiot. I don't know what to say. I am to torture you if you don't do it.
You have a doctorate in that, too?
No. This is more like a hobby. But I'm very gifted.
Oh, I believe you. My cell phone opens the
No,
car.
no, Mr. Bond. I do it, yeah?
Recall 3, send.
Wait! I'm just a professional doing a job.
Me too.
After that scene.
Oh, well, this is the other callback, by the way. As Bond is getting ready to hand him the cell phone to unlock the car, you hear the doo-doo-doo-doo, which is the same notes from Dr. No when the spider was crawling up Bond in bed.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. So we get the other thing that is memorable for me, at least, in this movie, and this is the big Act 2 action scene, the big Act 2 car chase with the remote control car.
I have some concerns.
Would you like to air those concerns?
I have some concerns. I don't know how a volley of missiles is so powerful that it can literally throw backwards a 3,500-pound car into another car and drive that car backwards, but it's not powerful enough to break down the metal door of a parking garage, to not even put a dent in it. I don't really understand how that works.
Well, you play video games. Like, there's certain walls that are just unbreakable, and that was one of them.
He should have gotten the super missiles. That probably would have.
That
probably would have done it. I also find it weird how in the previous scene we see, the goons trying to break into Bond's BMW with sledgehammers, and he has security protection enabled on the car that they can't break through the windshield and windows with sledgehammers, but some gunfire can easily take care of the windshield of the car in this scene. Why they didn't think to shoot it, I have no idea when they were trying to break in earlier, but okay. That's fine, I guess. And then, of course, the coup de grace. And we have all sorts in the scene. Like, you have Bond has a hole in his windshield, so of course when they shoot like a Stinger missile at the car, it goes right through and hits another car. And oh, by the way, of course, Bond is in the back seat this entire time, driving the car via remote control with his cell phone, which is cool, but ridiculous.
Like it's so fucking stupid.
It's not even the fact that he can do it; it's the fact that he can steer with such precision as he's doing it. And of course, I mean, they set it up earlier in the film, because when he first got the car, you find out that Bond can even remote control drive a car instantly in 2 seconds because he's jacked into the Matrix, as we all know. But to navigate around a parking garage with such expertise is great. And then again, the coup de grace is when they put up like a barrier cable, like a metal barrier cable, and they're like, this will stop the car. This will stop the car. And Bond looks in his phone and he's like, oh shit, there's a cable ahead. I've got just the thing. So the hood ornament on the BMW, the hood emblem pops up, and there is a buzzsaw embedded in it that just so happens to be the exact height that Bond needs it to be to rip through this metal tension cable. That's the part that gets me.
And apparently the buzzsaws are made out of laser beams because nothing like it wouldn't do an instant cut like that. Like it just wouldn't. That cable is incredibly thick. It's that cable that whips around and it makes the noise like the shit is ridiculous, right? Like everything about it is so silly. But god damn it, like I'd be lying if I told you that this wasn't fun. Like it's just fun to watch, man.
Like I said, the parts that I enjoyed the most is when he drives over his like spikes that he lays out to blow the tires of the other cars. His tires get blown. He has self-inflating tires, which amuses him to no delight once he activates them. He has a funny look on his face. And then I like him driving the car through the concrete barrier on the roof of the garage, like you said, through the Avis dealership that's at the that happens to be at the bottom.
I like how James Bond has no regard for any pedestrians up until the point where the car's in the air, and then he's like, oh shit, there might be people there. Let me honk to get their attention. And let's just pray to God that no one is in that Avis down there.
I hope he sprung for the extra $300 insurance on the car. Could you imagine if you fucking rented a car and then delivered it back through the window of the car rental office in that condition? By the way, with the exception of the windshield, though, during this entire fight, through sledgehammers and bullets and missiles and everything like that, windshield fucked. The rest of the car, perfect.
Pretty pristine. Yeah, pretty pristine. The second that thing hit that concrete barrier, I mean, the grill was spotless, right? Like it was as if nothing had hit it. Like it was. This is such a silly scene, man.
This would easily be the most ridiculous car chase ever in a Bond film if it wasn't for the film that shall not be named. Which has to take this car chase and raise it to infinity. Like the tank chase was less ridiculous than this parking garage car chase.
Right. I can believe that a tank is damn near indestructible. I can't believe no. Look, I understand German engineering and all that. No, I can't do it. Bond gets helicoptered over to meet with CIA liaison Jack Wade.
He's back.
And
by the way, Bond in naval dress, full naval attire.
I love it.
It's the best. Did you also notice like how like when the US like crypto guy is talking, like him and Wade just like look at each other, because of course Wade's in like his traditional flower print shirt and he looks like he just came off a fishing boat somewhere, and they just kind of like they kind of look at each other at the same time, give them a once over, and then just kind of turn back.
See, I know what you all are doing, man. Like they're making fun of us Americans, man. Like I get it. But
do you also like that when they get on the plane? So Bond, gives them the crypto device back, and they figure out where the British boat went down. So instructing him on how to do this very difficult parachute jump is perhaps the world's greatest Delroy Lindo impersonator that they could have gotten for this film. To the point where I thought it was Delroy Lindo at first when I first watched this movie, and I was like, no, it's just a guy that sounds like him. A large, bald black man that sounds just like Delroy Lindo.
Oh shit, that's funny, man. So, as you said, James Bond does a high altitude or a halo jump, high altitude, low opening.
Whoever came up with that, with the, because that's a real thing, right? That's something that actually happens.
Yes.
Whoever came up with that is a fucking insane person. I could not imagine jumping out of a plane and popping a parachute. Like what is it's supposed to be like what like 200 feet?
Yeah.
Before you hit the water, and then you're supposed to cut it before you even hit the water. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like it's like driving a car at 200 miles an hour, right? Throwing on the emergency brake, and then jumping out of the car
before it comes to a complete stop.
Right. Like, no.
It's amazing. By the way, it's funny because you would hear about the Halo jump in this film, and the next time that I would ever see it in like media would be, I think, in Metal Gear Solid 3. Except that Snake's not trying to do it in water; he's landing in a fucking jungle. It's just crazy. And by the way, these scenes here, where they surface, not, of course, the boat stuff was done in a studio, but the where they surface is right near James Bond Island outside of Phuket, where they filmed Man with the Golden Gun, where Scaramanga's lair is.
Oh, nice. Very nice. So after the Halo jump, he does the Halo jump to the South China Sea to investigate the wreckage of the ship that was missile torpedo drilled. There he meets Wai Lin, and they have a misunderstanding, and they're like, "Oh wait, I recognize that mouth. You're that Asian woman. Let's go to the surface." And so they go to the surface, and it turns out that the ship that Wai Ling was using was captured and taken over by Stamper. So essentially they're captured and handcuffed together. I don't know if I don't know, like, these two have a good chemistry together. Bond and Wai Lin, they have a good chemistry together, but they have a good, like, working chemistry together. They don't have a good sexual chemistry together.
Yes, which makes the end of the film, when they, when they have sex at the very end of the movie, is completely unbelievable. Because, like you said, it's conceivable they'd be working together. I don't get the romance angle.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. Like, that's something that just felt kind of tacked on to me, because we have to do it, because this is a Bond film. Anyway, the two of them handcuffed together are brought to Elliot Carver. Along the way, they meet General Chang, the man that, as you said, will be prompted up as the savior, the one preventing World War III.
Were found dead this morning in Vietnam. Lacks punch, don't you think?
Oh, it's old news, Elliot. We've been working together for months.
Both our governments know what you and General Chang are up to.
I don't think so. You may have seen the General in the hallway just now, but perhaps with all your jetting around, you have not had chance to peruse today's headlines. I rather like the last one. It isn't even mine.
I never believe what I read in the press anyway.
Therein lies your problem, Mr. Bond. You see, we're both men of action, but your era and Miss Lynn's is passing. Words are the new weapons. Satellites, the new artillery.
And you become the new Supreme Allied Commander?
Exactly. Caesar had his legions, Napoleon had his armies. I have my divisions. TV, news, magazines. And by midnight tonight, I'll have reached and influenced more people than anyone in the history of this planet, save God himself. And the best he ever managed was a Sermon on the Mount.
You really are quite insane.
The distance between insanity and genius is measured only by success.
Excuse me. General Chang is waiting.
If you'll forgive me, your appearance here has forced me to move up my time.
Right. So then this is where Carver details his plot. So they stole a nuclear warhead off of the British naval vessel, which they're going to fire at Beijing, with the British boat in the area, because they know the British are going to come respond to what happened, because they're predictable. So they're going to fire a missile into Beijing as a meeting of the Chinese High Council is being called, basically, which this General Chang is going to be conveniently late to. He's going to be stuck in traffic just in time to assume the leadership of the Republic of China.
This is hilarious. Eventually, a fight breaks out. What's his name? Gertz Otto. Stamper Stamper is like Kaufman was like a father to me. He was telling me how I can murder people in really cool ways. And I'm gonna do that to you. And he takes this big ass he grabs this big ass like gigantic can opener, like the deadliest can opener in the world. And he's like, and Carver's like, when you cut his heart out, there might be enough time to watch him like see it beating before he dies. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like,
well, it's because Bond keeps throwing shade at him as he's talking about his grand plot here.
Man, I can never be a villain, man. I'm just way too cool, man. Like I like shit like that doesn't rattle me, man. I could never be a villain, or I would be the greatest villain ever. Because I ain't got time for all that, man. They just words. Hey, what are you gonna do? First of all, I'd have killed you right then and there. Like, movie over. World War III, let's get it going. But anyway, there's a fight, and the two of them, while handcuffed, make it out of the room, and they jump down the side of a building, outside of the GMGN building, where Carver has a gigantic like poster of himself, and they use the poster to slide down and block their and slow down their descent. And then they stop in the middle of it, and they rappel against the wall of the building to break into a window.
What's the John McClane entrance?
Yeah, so that they're able to get down, right? And then we get another chase scene. So the two of them are, like I said, linked together, and they're both looking for a conveyance to get out of here. And I read this somewhere. I don't know how true it is. You'll have to let me know. But they end up, going for a motorcycle, and the director went off and talked to Pierce Brosnan and said, "All right, Pierce, you're going to be the one to drive this bike. So just, grab it and get going." Then he went off to Michelle Yeoh and said, "Okay, Michelle, you're going to be the one to grab this bike and you're the one that's going to make the escape." And neither one of the two actors knew that the director told them that. So the scene in the film where they're fighting over who should be driving first is a real life misunderstanding between the two actors, and it was so good that they kept it in the movie.
I've never seen that. That would be an interesting way to give direction to get that conveyance in that scene.
Yeah,
I think they could have done that on their own though. Like,
I think they're talented enough actors where you don't have to, give direction by omission. For God's sake.
Right. They do pick the worst bike they could have gotten for this scene, of course, which was the design of a scene to take a heavy bike. Like, you'd think you'd want like a crotch rocket or something along those lines,
right,
to zip through the streets of Saigon, but not really Saigon because they couldn't film in Vietnam, so it's Bangkok. But like I said, instead they get this giant, of course, a BMW chopper, basically.
Well, Yamaha wasn't ponying up any dough.
You know what though? I actually really like this scene, even though it goes on this chase sequence, even though it goes on far too long. There's a lot of clever gags in it as you go along. Like, yeah, and I especially like the bike jump over the helicopter.
Yeah,
they did for real, which was cool.
Yeah.
I like the obviously rigged but still fun, the collapsing balcony as they were driving across that as well. And then the way it ends, so as they're going through, they're of course evading all these cars, but then eventually a helicopter gets brought into the mix, and they get trapped into kind of a cul-de-sac where the copter is angled downward so that its blades are kind of blocking the path, and they're kind of slowly going toward it. So Bond's way to escape from this is to grab a clothesline and drive the bike towards the chopper, lay it down and slide underneath the blades, and then throw the clothesline into the helicopter blades, which takes down the helicopter. It's kind of cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool. Now, let me ask you a question. I don't know if you know the answer, but is when they did the helicopter jump, I like, the movie nerd in me wants to desperately believe that those were real propeller blades spinning on the helicopter as a motorcycle did the actual jump. But the practical guy in me is like, well, they CG'd though. They did the jump, but the blades were added in post-production.
I would think that that's a reasonable stance to take because they don't want to kill a guy.
You don't want to kill anybody.
Right. If you accidentally miss the jump. It's still cool. I mean, they still jumped a bike over a helicopter.
It's still cool, man. Like, hey, it got the effect, man. They did the effect, man. Like it is what it still looked cool, man. It still looked cool. I was just curious if they were ballsy enough. Like if they were, I would be like, wow, this movie just kind of went up a notch.
I mean, I don't think they also dropped a bike underneath actually spinning helicopter blades either, for that matter.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're showering together, and I guess they're showering at an open drain pipe, and I guess this is like supposed to be like the scene of them like showing some sort of sexual chemistry, but it doesn't work for me.
Right, because if anything, it's Bond flirting with her, and she's just kind of playing along until she can pick the lock on her handcuffs and get away because she still doesn't trust him.
Exactly. So we get another action scene that's a callback to the action scene before the big remote control car scene, where Michelle Yeoh's character is fighting off a ton of dudes who are under General Chang.
And this was the, like I said, this was the scene that I think they had in mind when they cast Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, because this is very much like, for those who don't know, Michelle Yeoh is essentially like a female Jackie Chan, right? And this scene in particular feels like a Michelle Yeoh movie. And she's over here kicking ass and taking names, and James Bond is just casually walking around like punching dudes. And
he goes to the well a second time. He did the fake cigarette lighter trick earlier in the film.
Like, hey man, worked before. Try it again. Just keep doing it till it doesn't work. This scene made me want to see this movie from Michelle Yeoh's perspective. I'm just curious as to what this was. I don't know if this was Michelle, if I would call this Michelle Yeoh's like breakout Hollywood role.
I think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came before this, did it not?
I think it came after this. Yeah, it came out. It came out in 2000.
Well after this, actually.
Yeah, it came out in 2000. So maybe this is her like big Hollywood debut. But I thought that this would have done more for her, because she's serviceable as in terms of acting. Like of course she can do all the action, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the character is interesting enough in this very bland ass movie that I don't know. I kind of wanted to see the film from her perspective.
I'm trying to look at her IMDb real quick to see what film, if there was one film specifically that they would have used to as inspiration to cast her. I don't really see it. I guess maybe like she was in both the Super Cop movies with Jackie Chan.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that might have been it. And you know, everyone's trying to look, China's a big market, always has been.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we just notice it nowadays because it's egregious, but you know, 20 years ago, we weren't thinking about it. But it's always been there. Anyway, there's more exposition, and eventually the two of them decide that they have to contact their respective governments to explain Carver's plan.
Now, did you like this, what amounts to like a quasi Q scene as well here inside of her safe house, where she has hidden like these fancy computers and this entire weapon arsenal and all these crazy like the original plan was to actually have a Chinese version of Q in the safe house that would demonstrate the crazy gadgets, like the fan that has the, you know, all the wiring in it, and the rickshaw that that incapacitates the other guy. and the and stuff like that as well.
I do like it. It's a new twist on an old favorite for me. Like I always like the Q scene. Like who doesn't, right? And they're just the right amount of silly for these movies.
Well, and this is where Brosnan this is where his skills shine, because he's able to he puts his hand down on this like dragon statue that emits a thing of flame, and he's like, that's very novel. And then like when he's playing with the fan, he just flicks the fan open, and that's where all these wires came out. He's like, I just like completely deadpan's like, oh, I've always been a fan of Chinese technology. So
he can do the corny one-liners and not have them be like ridiculous, like not have them be groan-inducing. Like it takes a very, very special line that we'll talk about next month that will induce a groan from me when Pierce Brosnan does it, right? Because he's smooth, man. Like he can do that, right? But anyway, they eventually find Carver's stealth boat made from stolen stealth material. I don't for some reason that explanation of what this boat is made of just doesn't sit right with me.
I know, why does it have to be like he's rich? Why can't he just have built it?
Right. Like, okay, all right, but whatever. They go and they find the stealth boat, and Carver is planning on firing the warhead.
It's a nuclear missile, right?
He's planning on firing the warhead at Beijing, right?
Because he knows the British are in the area. Like he knows the British fleet is investigating what happened to their other ships. So they're kind of parked around where they think the ship is located, even though that's not actually where the ship was sunk.
Right.
So like I said, he's going to do that, and eventually the British, he'll fire a warhead, and the Chinese will want to go to war with the British, and then General Chang will step up to broker peace, which will make him like the next great world leader, basically.
Right. He'll get the Nobel Peace Prize and all that good stuff. Weiland eventually gets captured and brought to Elliot Carver. And then what Elliot Carver does.
This was an ad lib, by the way. This was
it's brilliant. It is one of the funniest things that I have ever seen, and it always elicits a big old belly laugh from me.
Well, so to set it up, so as Bond and Wayland were trying to plant mines in like the access area on the ship, they were separated. She gets captured. He feigns like he takes a dead body of a guard that he incapacitated and kind of holds it out, and Stamper and his dude shoot the dude, and Bond pushes the body into the ocean, which makes them think that Bond is dead.
Yes. So she is captured, and she's like, and Carver's like, your boy James Bond, he's not going to be here to finish your plan or whatever. Weiland makes a valiant attempt to break free from her captors, but is immediately shut down. And Elliot Carver does this random ass mocking of like chopsaki martial arts, and just, and it is so funny seeing Jonathan Pryce just feign martial arts. Like it's something that look, get a hold of this movie and watch it, because it's so fucking funny to me, man. Just seeing this old man, because then he like sticks his arms out, and he's like doing a cha-cha while kicking. Like it's so funny, man. So the British government finally gets on their ass, and they're like, oh shit, like, hey, we just got a message from Bond, and I confirmed it with the Chinese. This is what Elliot's plan is, so go look for that stealth boat. Eventually Bond captures Gupta and has a face-off with Elliot Carver, who has Wai Lin captured, and James Bond, who has Gupta captured.
Now, mind you, they appear to be at least 100 feet away from each other. Like Carver's on the bridge of the ship, and Bond is down like by some mechanical stuff with Gupta, and Gupta's standing there. Bond's crouched with a gun to him.
Yes.
And he wants to leverage Gupta for Wai Lin. He's like, you can't fire the missile that Gupta, and I want Wai Lin back because, you know, I told her we're going to finish this with one another.
Because I haven't had sex with her yet.
Right, correct. That's also basically correct. And Carver goes into monologue mode, which Bond realizes is a ploy. So this is like the Moonraker scene, right, where, you know, like he's skate shooting and he shoots the guy in the tree.
Yeah,
kind of deal. It's that where, you know, Carver's going on, and Bond shoots this guy that's above him trying to kill him, and Bond's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I tuned out to what you were saying there for a second."
Get it? Because he's a media mogul.
Yes,
and
so Carver's like, "Hey, Gupta, like, are we ready to rock and roll?" And Gupta's like, "Yeah, no problem. You just have to push the button, and the missile will be fired." And Carver's like, "Well, I guess you've outlived your contract," and he shoots him in the head, point blank, with a pistol from 100 feet away, like it's nothing.
See, what you didn't know is that those spectacles that Elliot Carver has a targeting computer in them, apparently.
That aspect is the most unbelievable part of his character out of anything in this entire movie. The fact that he's a crack shot with a long range pistol. Bond does his best Triple H though, and he always has a plan B, which in this case is a grenade inside of a jar, which he pops the jar and a grenade, but basically puts a hole in the side of the ship.
Yeah, causing it to be visible to radar. The British are like, "Yo, we got to take this thing out." The Chinese send a message to the British like, "Hey, look, that's all you. Like, we're going back home. We're not going to fire on that thing unless it points its guns at China. So have at it." And the British were like, "All right, let's rock and roll."
Yep. And they start taking it down. Meanwhile, Wai Lin gets away and her and Bond split up. So Bond is going to try to just create destruction and disable the warhead. And Wai Lin's going to slow the boat down because the boat's trying to escape. And she's going to go to the engine room. Now, riddle me this, Micah. As Michelle Yeoh is going throughout the corridors of the ship trying to find the engine room, she has a pair of machine guns, light machine guns that she carries around with her. Why does she make karate noises before she fires her weapon? Because I shit you not, like every time she goes to shoot the gun, she's like, "Yeah," and like just starts machine gunning shit.
Well, you see, the folks in that culture aren't really used to fighting with, guns. Like, they're used to fighting with their hands, and, they do all the kias and all that with their fists, right? So I guess her mentality was, because these guns are extensions of my fist, I will make kia noises to try and punch them with the bullets that come out of my gun arms.
It makes Carver's mocking of her less like mocking and more like real life.
I have a question for you. James Bond is running around, carrying, creating havoc and destruction and all that good stuff. He's walking around with two guns also.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a submachine gun, right? That fires what? 80, 100 bullets a minute, something like that. The other is a silenced pistol. And he's shooting these things akimbo, like together. Like, what is that pistol doing, James? Like, you got this gun that you can spray and pray all you want, and then you have a pistol in the other hand. I just don't understand. Like,
he's gun ambidextrous. Like, he can do careful aiming with his pistol simultaneously while he's doing wide damage with the machine gun.
Like this shit, like, and it doesn't even like. I guess they wanted it. They thought it looked badass or whatever, and I guess it does, but it actually kind of doesn't because it just looks stupid. Like
I never noticed that. Like I got too hooked up on someone making noises before firing a gun to pay attention to what James Bond was dual wielding during this scene.
It's just so bizarre to me, man. It's just so bizarre to me. Like, put that goddamn pistol away, and maybe you could get a more accurate shot with your submachine gun.
Yeah, he doesn't need it.
Yeah, apparently not.
Well, because then he happens upon like a. Why is there like an internal missile launcher inside the boat?
Inside the boat.
Like you're just asking for someone to just wheel that thing around and start firing it indoors.
Like, and as much as incompetent as human beings are, right? Let's say that none of this stuff is happening and Carver's plan is what it is. There's a thing called human error. And someone somewhere on that ship, like Murphy's Law denotes that somewhere on that ship, someone is going to accidentally press a button that launches one of those missiles. And you're not going to have a good day.
Probably not. Now here's the one issue that I do have with this film is that this whole boat sequence feels less like James Bond being James Bond and more like this guy is just like a generic action hero.
Yeah.
Like he's not doing James Bond stuff. Even at the point where he gets to Carver and we'll get to that in a second where he gets to Carver to finish off Carver. He's not being very Bond-like. It's just that like you could rip that scene out of this movie and put it into any generic action film and you'd have that, I think.
Yeah. You could put this might as well be like Die Hard 6 with this last little bit here. Well, I guess he's kind of being like Timothy Dalton Bond. Because that guy was a fucking psychopath. And what Pierce Brosnan does here is fucking psychotic. So he is James Bond is pinned up against the control panel. Elliot Carver is between him and the drill missile. And Bond, they have a war of words. Carver's got a gun pointed to him. Bond sees an override button. He turns around. He hits an override button and grabs the gun from, it distracts Carver. He grabs the gun from him. And instead of giving Carver the dignity of being shot in the head, he holds Carver until the drill missile gets towards them. And then he throws Carver into the blades of the drill missile.
He doesn't even throw Carver at the drill. He just kind of leaves him there. And there's a legit few seconds where Carver could easily dive out of the way. But I guess he's paralyzed by fear.
He's like,
he can't move and he's just screaming.
It's like, what the fuck? Like he's like, what the fuck is about to happen right now?
It's almost as if they watched Austin Powers the year before and they saw the scene with the one dude with the steamroller where he's like, stop, no, and they keep cutting the camera back and the steamroller's like 20 feet away from him and they just keep cutting back and forth and like it takes forever for the steamroller to get to him. Like it's like they watched the scene from this movie that parodies all of their films and they're like, this could work in our movie as well. Let's have Elliot Carver be paralyzed by fear as the sea drill is literally 10 feet away from him, slowly moving toward him, and then it will kill him. Because we have it's not enough for Bond to kill in cold. Bond, of course, can't kill the main villain in cold blood. He has to kill him in some far more elaborate and less direct manner. So this is the method we will choose. But again, Carver could have easily dove out of the way.
Yeah. Or, you could have ducked. Like anything. Like just collapse. If you just collapsed, you'd have been okay. I don't know. That was a pretty brutal death. That is a harsh way for anyone to go.
I would agree. And of course, because this is a Bond film with an imposing henchman. Bond is not done when he kills the main villain. He still has to mop up with the idealistic henchman who despite the fact that the leader is dead, still wants the plan to succeed and also exact revenge on Bond for killing his mentor.
So they get into a fight. Well, he has the Stamper has Michelle Yeoh's character tied up via chains, and he drops her into the water.
Right. Bond is trying to attach mini bombs to the missile so that when the missile ignites, the nuclear warhead ignites, it'll explode.
Right. He's able to do that. Stamper drops Wylin into the water, and the two of them have a fight, and Bond stabs Stamper in the arm, and Stamper has this very weird look like I was like, all right, he just took that knife to the arm like a champ. Eventually, Stamper is holding Bond by his bulletproof jacket,
his tactical vest,
his tac vest, and Stamper is stuck. Like the weight of the missile comes crashing down onto his foot, and he's stuck. So he's like, "Well, if we're gonna die together." And Bond cuts himself loose, holds his breath.
Oh no! My favorite part is to cut himself loose. He literally takes the knife that is sticking out of Stamper's chest and just like yoink, and uses that to cut his vest off. It's fantastic. He cuts himself loose, falls into the water. Apparently Michelle Yeoh, who feels like she's been in there for 5 minutes, is a champion at holding her breath, and luckily for her, none of that water got into her lungs. James Bond gives her the kiss of life by breathing his carbon monoxide air coming out of his body into Michelle Yeoh, to give her just enough to hold out for a little bit longer while the missile blows up and Stamper blows up along with it. That is the end of the bad guys. We cut to M telling Moneypenny, giving Moneypenny a statement that she can leak to the press, because that's what's been going on throughout the movie, right? Like Carver, whose paper is called Tomorrow, is writing the headlines before they happen. So all's well. The HMS Bedford, which was attacking the ship, is looking for Bond and Wylin, and all of a sudden Wylin is just super attracted to James Bond, which just kind of right. And they're like, yeah, let's have sex on this burning ship.
Yeah.
That just blew up.
Time and a place, guys. Time and a place. Like, I get it. Like, you want to jump each other's bones all of a sudden, but how about we get on dry land first? How about that? And then we cut to black.
And like I said, you get treated to the actual good song from this film, which again, you guys will hear at the end of this episode when we're all wrapped up.
So this movie,
it happened.
It happened.
I've seen it a bunch. I'll watch it whenever it's on. I enjoy certain aspects, and it's there.
Like, I don't actively hate this movie. I just don't think it's better than GoldenEye, right?
Oh no. Oh Lord, no. Like GoldenEye, I mean, you and I both established that's a top 3.
Oh yeah.
Bond for us. This is definitely somewhere in the lower half, probably. Not far in the lower half, but it's down there.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's better than what we're gonna get next month, and it's certainly better than what we're compared to what we're gonna review 2 months from now. This might as well be like the Citizen Kane of Bond movies compared to the movie that shall not be named, August's terrible Bond divorce.
Oh man, the August is going to be a
we're building that up, and I know we might be building it up to levels that can't possibly achieve. No, trust me, it will. That review will live up to the hype, because God damn it.
Like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I can't wait to rip into that movie, but I gotta watch it again, and that is not going to be fun.
And like I said, we have one to get to before then, which is also really not good.
Yeah, it's just kind of not.
But I said, this one though was fine. There's some people that really hate this movie. I don't understand. I don't get the hate for the film that exists with some people. I really don't.
Yeah, this movie is not offensive in any way. It has very fun aspects to it. It's just not memorable. Like, I actively dislike the next movie, and I actively hate the one after that. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. But I don't know. Anyway, if you're listening to this, thank you very much for being a subscriber to the Nerdpocalypse Premium network. You get this show, you get airing of grievances, and you get No Time to Bleed, and you get all of Look Forward. But you already know that, so tell people that don't know that. And yeah, this was all right. I had a much better time doing this.
Oh yeah, the review was fun because there's a lot of ridiculous bullshit that we can point out, that we got to point out in this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, watching it, just it's ho hum. It's on TV way too much. Like I think of all the Brosnan films, this one is on TV more than any other one, and I can't for the life of me figure out why that is.
Yeah, over GoldenEye, I don't really understand it, but I understand why you don't play the other two, because
yeah. But I mean, like I said, this ends up kind of being of all the Bond movies, I feel like this is the most generic action filmy of all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is probably why it's not that memorable. So
there you go. So thanks a lot, folks. Thanks for listening. And the Man with the Golden Tongues will return next month.
Story I've already written. The news is that I am in control. I have the power to make you surrender. Not